My name is Julien. I'm the chief evangelist for Arcee AI. We have quite a team of Arcee Avengers. Should I say Transformers? No, we're human still. So we're the Arcee Avengers. We have Lucas, who is the lead of Arcee Labs, our research arm. We have Andrew, one of our solution architects, working closely with all our customers to build great SLM-based solutions. And you can't see him, but he is here. We have Chris, another one of our solutions architect, and is anxiously waiting for your questions. So fire away, and Chris will answer everything. No pressure, Chris. Okay, so today we're going to spend some time discussing a new platform that we built, right, guys? And it's called Arcee Orchestra. And I guess Lucas will tell us later why we picked that name. So Arcee Orchestra is really our super exciting launch from just a couple of weeks ago. And the reason why we're so excited is because it combines what Arcee has been doing so far since the company was started about a year and a half ago. So small language models based on open source architectures with new technology that lets all of you out there rely on those small language models to build agentic AI and agentic workflows. So and Andrew will do a bunch of cool demos. So that's the plan today. The plan is to show you what we're building, talk about SLMs, talk about agents, talk about RC, talk about all that cool stuff. And not only talk about it, but also show it to you. And again, answer as many questions as we can. Okay, so get all the questions going. This is really about conversation and hopefully helping you learn a few things. So let's get started. So Lucas, I guess by now folks understand what RC has been doing, right? RC is building small language models, most of them open source, and we put them on Hugging Face, and they tend to sit very, very high on the Open LLM leaderboard. Um, but there's more to it, right? So why are we moving now into orchestra and agents? What's the story there? And did we lose Lucas? Oh, no, he's back. All right, all right. Having fun with Wi-Fi. You need me to repeat my question?
Pavel stuck connection to you. In the second you went, all right, so Lucas, it just showed off.
Okay, all right. That was my bad vibe for the day.
The question because I was scrambling again.
No worries. So I guess by now, folks out there know about RC as a model builder. We put our cool models on the Hugging Face hub. Most of them, some of them are still commercial models, but most of them do go to Hugging Face, and they get evaluated on the leaderboard. They rank very high. A lot of times they end up number one, and they stay there for a little while. And that's great. We get a lot of good feedback on those models, super, and you contributed to, I guess, all of them, the supernova lights and virtuoso lights and the latest one we released, the blitz, etc., etc. I mean, there's a ton of them. So great. That's the starting point. Now, why are we moving into agents? What are agents? What is orchestra? What's the big picture here?
Yeah, I think that it's good to set that's neat in that context because RC um, is first and foremost a company where we want to enable enterprises to get like genuine value from AI. And the way that happens has changed as the capabilities of these models have become better. So, um, when initially releasing those models open source, we kind of started doing a large amount of that last June or July. The idea was, hey, if we can make these models good at X, Y, and Z domain as a side project, like imagine for you or on your data for your use case and what have you. And we had a lot of customers come to us interested in helping us deliver tools with our to train their models. But what we ended up finding towards the end of last year was that a lot of companies were coming to us with use cases that they thought necessitating a model. Well, voice processing, sentiment analysis, sales summarize, that kind of stuff, market, sales lead finding. And while you could train a model to be good at that, a vast majority of that is in the implementation part, right? One of the big things with RC, just for those that don't know, is we want these models to run in your environment. That's why they're small language models. They should be able to run locally in your own cloud or in your own system, so you have complete control over the in and out of the data. And so we said, well, we can still help people make amazing models. We can also continue to make our own models that are trained specifically to do these kind of integration heavy tasks. And that's kind of where Orchestra the idea for Orchestra began, and ultimately why we're launching it now is the idea of, instead of for every customer that comes saying, "Hey, let's train you a custom model," which can take 6 to 8 weeks, and it's a very iterative process, and 6 to 8 weeks in the AI world is a couple of years, right? In your average industry, so stuff changes quickly. Orchestra is, let's get you something using one of our strong models, like in your environment, that is connected to all of your tools, and then can take many actions using those tools that are like repeatable, redundant, and reliable. So Orchestra is not currently what I would call like an open-ended agentic platform, and that we are definitely exploring that and doing research towards how to do that well. But it's not one of those things where you can just say, "Hey, go to Calendly and book an appointment." You have to build out that workflow. And the reason we're doing that is, if I came to you and said, "Hey, I have this open-ended environment, you can put it into production, you can have it face millions of users," and I said, "And you know what? It's awesome. It works 95% of the time." Well, for a research perspective, 95% of the time is great. I think that's so cool. But this is years when you put that in scale is okay. Because very reliable. The only thing that changes is going to be the variables coming in, so different spreadsheets, documents, pieces of text, what have you. And then that's ultimately the goal behind Orchestra. Is let's take the time to value for enterprises from getting these solutions from 2 months to a couple days.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of customers have learned that it, you can't solve your problem, your business problem end to end with just a model, right? I mean, it's not how things work.
That's so funny is people would come to us and say we want a model, and their experience with the model was ChatGPT, right? When you're not a model, that there's the fire, there's the model in there, but there are many layers on top of it, right? And so, regardless of whether it was just a model training, there's always an engineering and implementation side of things. We're still in tech, we're still building products, whether home facing or customer facing. So yeah, absolutely, it's
and there's always, I mean, people tend to forget, I mean, when you've been in tech long enough, there's no silver bullet. So, I mean, you've got some data and code and processes based on Salesforce or based on HubSpot or based on Jira or based on relational databases, etc. And all that stuff has been working, more or less, but generally working for the last 30 years. So the idea that you can just take a language model, large or small, and just throw everything away and achieve whatever you were achieving before with those complex, IT processes is just, it's a pipe dream, right? Whatever code you have today is still useful. And yes, we love the power of language models as, I guess, data pattern uh, for data pattern extraction or for conversational applications, etc., etc. But honestly, if you need to go and call an API to get some deterministic thing done, with 100% chance, as you were saying, to be right, then go do it. Don't train a model. Don't train a random, statistical model to do something that is 100% deterministic. And I think that's why those workflows are so important.
yeah. I hope. Can you still hear me? I do think that
Yeah, yes, yeah. Well,
that's true. I mean the view down, but I agree with you because my take in one of the favorite things I love about what we do at RC is like Gen AI is incredibly powerful, right? And it has more so, right? This is we're very early stages. Oh yeah, what these models are going to be capable of, both the large and small scale. But they are not infallible. Like there are limits to what these models could do. Uh, and so while Orchestra is by nature and by name, it is an orchestration platform. It is agent platform. I would call it that. If anything, with these workflows, we're actually taking a little bit of agency away from the models and saying, look, let's have you do exactly what you're good at.
Yes. Yeah. Do what you're good at.
It it'll do, reason over this text, transform this into the format required, use this best interpreter, what have you, and then programmatically do everything else. So the calling into APIs is done programmatically. The manipulation, if you're doing it in code, is programmatic. The knowledge retrieval, all of that's done. You take that away from the model's needs, and you compartmentalize, and you can do several calls at once, right? You get into the world where you're getting a much more reliable, much more tangible output. And Andrew can show some of that.
Well, yeah, yeah. And well, I think a lot of value in Orchestra comes from all those integrations, right? All those third-party integrations, and I'm sure we'll see some of them in Andrew's demo. So let's not just talk about the integrations right now, unless you wanted maybe just a couple of words. How do you see the role of those integrations? What's the value they bring?
I mean, if a customer came to us and said, "Hey, I need, I need," again, that invoice processing one is the one I love, because you would have people come from models, and it's also like, well, great, we could train it to do that well, but then we also need to give it those invoices, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't help if we were gonna try to cut time to value for these AI solutions from months to days, if for every customer that came, we or they had to write uh, their own integration or own tool into the system, right? So, that was a massive undertaking here at RC with some partners to get around 250 different integrations, whether it was I'm still going for them. Word in there, right? And so it's like so about and some people be video. Discord, obviously your QuickBooks and any we're trying to have a wide reach and a wide umbrella such that if you use some form of enterprise tool, we're not asking you to replace that. We want to work well with that. And then within each of those, there's, I mean, hundreds of actions that can be taken. And Andrew will share more on that. But I think that what's exciting is that, it also allows us at RC to say yes to a lot more, because some of our folks would come and say, hey, we want to do this thing that involves invoice processing and we need to do QuickBooks. There was always a scoping out period. Like, how long is this going to take? How many engineers is this going to involve? How much data do we need to get? And for something that used to be scoped for like 4 people for a month, we scope it to 1 person for 2 days. So that's probably to be um, a lot faster with the way that we kind of get these things to people.
So before we jump to the demos and let Andrew show us more what Orchestra is capable of, can we talk a little bit about the models themselves? So generally, what kind of models would you want to use in those agentic workflows? And I guess do they need to be different models compared to the one we usually build? Would it make sense for customers to have tailored models thrown into the mix? What's the big picture there?
Um, there's there's a longer and a short answer, and because it's me, I'm likely going to give you the longer one. Well, what do I have? Hmm. We have started to, because the idea with Orchestra was like, instead of training a bunch of custom models, let's help people make a lot of workflows, but it still needs to live entirely within their own environment if they need. What Andrew's going to show off today is like in our own hosted cloud, we do offer NVPC and other solutions kind of as customers need them. It didn't make a lot of sense for me to say like, hey, I am going to put this software in your environment, but I'm going to host the models myself, or we're going to hit OpenAI or input out. When that is kind of one of the biggest, especially for your highly regulated industries, so like medicine, the big problem. Yeah, finance, a lot of these, and even government, like they can have like customer support chatbots powered by OpenAI, right? They're doing like RAG over their but anything that's like actually interfacing with customer data, unless for very particular circumstances, is not really using that. We want to give people that option. So the whole reason for adding our own models in Orchestra, designing Orchestra around our own SLMs, as opposed to what a lot of others do with like Claude and OpenAI, which might be easier from a, you need to abstract the model layer away, focus on the product. We had to kind of do both. Was we want to be able to put the entire thing in their environment, so including the models, right? Those can live within a customer system. So we trained many new models to do well in Orchestra at varying sizes and speeds. So we have like Virtuoso Large, which is our biggest kind of flagship model, very close to what you get from like GPT 4.0. And then all the way down to, that RC, RC Lite and RC Blitz model that we just released last week. And they have all been trained with our kind of like world-class distillation pipeline that we do for all of our models, or we take very large models like DeepSeek, grab logits from them, which is like the raw output of the models, but what are, turned into words again. Then we train the tinier models to respond like the bigger ones. So we have all those. We've also trained them on a lot of like raw API data, because it doesn't help if we're giving all these models a bunch of like raw API responses from whether the tool calls they're doing or the information they're taking in, right? Say I'm going to HubSpot, pulling in a client info, dumping it in. Let's say, okay, to summarize, if it doesn't know how to parse what's important in that, it's the error. So we also want a lot of that.
Where, yeah, some of those APIs are self-explanatory, some are weird. I guess even you could read it and I was like, no, I really, really need to read the docs. None of those parameter names make any sense. And if it's thanks to you, make sense to you, then they trust me, they don't make sense to the model either. And they need to be trained for that.
Really large models, like when you're even talking like, Opus or even Sonnet level, like they can typically draw, for lack of a better term, like what the importance of. But when you're getting into these smaller models, for us to keep them as performance as the larger, we have to train her with a degree toward that. But we do that, all of this said, we also want to make Orchestra as easy to use for customers as possible. So we do allow Sonnet, GPT 4.0. We're not going to not let you do that. This is a business decision. You do, what you're most comfortable with. We just want to make sure that the option is available for people when and if they want to kind of bring this into a more secure system.
Exactly. Freedom of choice. Talking about that, Andrew, and thank you, Lucas, for sharing your views on agents and orchestra. I think this is really valuable. So now let's show orchestra. And again, we have Andrew working, with customers day in, day out. So he's really one of the best persons to show us orchestra. And remember, we also have our Chris, of our very own Chris, solution architects as well, answering questions. Okay, so keep him busy. Okay, it shouldn't. We don't want him to slack, or we don't want to be the only ones working. So, all your questions, please send them to Chris and keep him busy. Okay, Andrew, what are you gonna show us?
They keep people very patient and very patient. Yeah, this was foolishly good for you.
So we're done with the philosophical part now. We want to see the platform in action. So, Andrew, tell us what you're gonna show us.
Yeah. So we're going to see a couple of things. First, we'll take a look at within Orchestra, what do we consider to be agentic and non-agentic actions as we interact with the workflows or automations that we build. We'll also take a look at how to build a workflow, and then take a look at a couple of different examples of workflows that we've built to show you how the different pieces can integrate together.
Okay, fire away.
Perfect.
And then a really quick, Andrew, I'm going to try, Slack is down, everyone. I'm going to try to send you a video. Maybe at the end, we can give a little sneak peek what's coming soon.
Awesome.
All right.
Perfect. So I believe I'm sharing. Can everyone see?
Yeah, we see your screen. Great.
Phenomenal. So this is the chat interface that you see when you log in to Arcee Orchestra. And this is a similar interface to a lot of the applications you see. And that's because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel in terms of how you can communicate with models and interact with your workflows. So in this UI, you're able to directly interact with different models. So for example, here you see we're interacting with our Virtuoso large model, which is that large general purpose model that Lucas mentioned earlier. And you can set the typical parameters and all of the fun stuff that you typically can do with models. But you also have the ability to enable tools. And these tools are the workflows that you actually build, so the automations that you're able to create. So when you interact with this system, the model actually has awareness of what tools are currently selected. So you have the ability to directly invoke those tools. So let's start with a very simple example. And we'll take a look here at a order status example. And at first, when I sent this request, there was no tools selected. So you can see the answer is very generic. And this would be the same as Julien. Let's say I walked up to you on the street and said,
Yeah.
"What's the status of my order?"
And I would go, what is this guy all about? I have no idea. Like, yeah, sure. I have no idea what that number means. And yeah, I know what an order is, but an order for what? And, what the heck is this number? Who knows? Exactly. I'm a general purpose guy. I don't know.
Exactly right. You're a general purpose guy, and the model's the same way here.
Yes.
It's like, hey, I'm not really sure. But I then go and select the tool and give the exact same prompt. You'll notice I didn't ask it to use a specific tool. I gave it the exact same prompt. And it recognized, oh, this is something that I have a tool that I can help answer. So it goes, starts off that workflow, and then provides a response. So this is really where we see non-agentic, where you don't have the ability to access external systems, be able to hold other information, and then agentic, where the model is able to invoke those automations.
And this works, just so you know, I mean, some viewers here might not be super familiar with this. There's no magic here, right? You tick that box, enabling tools, and because those tools have a description, right? Because you created them well and you describe what they were able to do, answering order, status questions, etc. The models can, add two and two together and say, yeah, the best tool for this is this particular workflow that you triggered, and then under the hood something happens, and I think that's what you're going to show us, right?
Exactly. And one of the other great things is a lot of the tools out there, it's reliant on your ability to describe what your tool can do in order for the model to pick up on it. But in Orchestra, it actually creates that description for you.
Yeah, you asked the same question. It was still the same question. You didn't do any extra work. I mean, as a user, right?
Exactly.
You ask a question, and then Orchestra figures out how to best answer.
I will note that that was one of the, when we were building Orchestra, there were a lot of discussions about how from scratch do we do it, right? Like how do we use some openly available tools and build on top of them? Or, lane chain, some of the other, and we ultimately decided we need to do it all from scratch. The whole thing, the entire workflow graph, the executor components, it's all, you know, um, built from the ground up from Arcee, and that was so that we were too granular with these kind of things. We could make an easy to summarize representation of the workflow that then it can automatically kind of be described by AI. Therefore, the user doesn't have to make the user doesn't need to know, like, worry about whether or not their description was enough for the model to know to call it. We handle all that.
All right.
So let's take a look at a really common example that a lot of companies come to us and ask about, and that is doing research. So here you can see I enabled a research automation tool, and all I asked it is I said, hey, research the stock market performance today and global news. And it went and provided the summary. So this was actually able to pull real-time articles from the web and be able to analyze them and provide answers in a very consumable fashion. And while this is all great, let's take a look at how this actually was executed. So this is an example of a workflow. And while it looks complex from the start, it's actually very easy to put together, and we'll walk through what the different steps are. So as you can see, the way of actually building these workflows or automations is through a drag and drop UI. And the reason we did this is we want to enable people with technical backgrounds as well as people without technical backgrounds to be able to build these automations. So there are nodes that you're able to use in order to build these automations. These include specific models, so choosing from the suite of RC small language models that come out of the box with Orchestra, or as Lucas mentioned, models that you brought in because you have a specific need to use a specific model, you can choose it there. There's the ability to run code for flexibility, to have your own integrations or be able to run anything you can do in code, right? As Julien mentioned earlier, all of the previous technology that we've released doesn't become obsolete because of AI. It's working together with AI.
Yeah.
There's the ability to do retrieval augmented generation, right? So we allow to do or to have you upload data into a vector database to abstract a lot of that complexity out. And then the built-in integrations, which will go in to a little bit more detail as well.
Yeah, and I can again. I mean, I'm building a few of those too, and it is really drag and drop. So yes, in this workflow, and Andrew has bunch of code boxes, the brownish boxes that you see here. Um, but you can build complex workflows without code boxes, just using models and integrations. And you will not write a line of code. You will just drag and drop and enter your prompts and connect the dots or the nodes, I should say, literally. So this is a very friendly way. And in fact, we have colleagues at RC who are not software engineers who are building workflows for particular job functions. So that's great. That's good validation. You don't need to be a software engineer, let alone a data scientist to use this tool.
Yeah, you're spot on, Julian. And actually, a couple of our examples will be exactly that, where it is just model nodes and evaluation nodes to show you don't need to write any code to fill these informations. The one other thing I want to highlight on this specific workflow is here you can see a couple of different model nodes. Some are labeled senior analysts, some are junior. And this is where we actually distinguish between the size of models. So in this example here, we have detailed analysis that is conducted on the news that's searched, as well as high level analysis that's done. And with the junior analyst, what we're able to do is use a smaller, more performant model so that your workflow can execute more quickly, and then use larger models for more complex analytical tasks so that you can have that balance between accuracy and being able to use larger models for complex tasks, as well as smaller models that are more performant and more cost effective from simple tasks.
Mhm. And we also see parallel execution here. So
Yeah,
yes, those boxes that branch out from those model boxes that branch out from the code boxes are running in parallel. So that's even better for latency, right?
absolutely. And then lastly is a lot of times customers want to come in and they want to have an automation happen and then they want to be notified about it some way, whether that be a messaging platform, have a email sent, and the integrations that we have built in make that very, very easy. So for example, in this one, we have an email that's sent to Gmail. And then at the exact same time, we have a report that's created. So actually how this one is set up is in the email, what's included is a 1 to 2 sentence summary of each article that was pulled for the topic as it's provided, and then a more detailed report that's included. So in everyone's busy days, you can get that email, quickly read through and go, oh, out of the 8 articles that were analyzed, these 2 are really interesting. And then go to the report to get a better understanding of those 2 that were interesting to you.
And again, just to make it crystal clear, those integration boxes. So here we see Gmail, and I think the other one is Google Docs. They I don't know, maybe if you can open one of them, but just to show that it's just about filling the parameters for the underlying API in Google Docs or Gmail. So you do not need to write code for Google Docs or Gmail or any one of the other APIs, which to me is amazing. It's like send the email or create the Google Doc as we see here. That's the title. That's the content of the document. Bam, go do your thing. I mean, I don't want to learn the Google Docs API. I want to get things done. And this is a huge time saver. Every one of those boxes, if you had to code that stuff, it would take you maybe, I don't know, even if it takes 30 minutes, it would take me.
Assuming the documentation will do. But it's a huge time saver. What I do want to add, though, one of the things that I think is going to be coming pretty soon is within those code nodes, I want to add like a natural language option where, like, if you want to do something custom, then maybe, you would want a code node to facilitate, but you're not for yourself. We put, RC Coder, an endpoint there, and you can say like, hey, I wanted to turn this into.
Yes, yeah, I've done that. Like, it's hey, I have one of the boxes, spitting out a moderately complex JSON document. And yes, of course, I could create a code box and have the 5 lines of Python to filter whatever I want to filter in that JSON document. Or honestly, I could just ask any model to do it. Or because they're so good at that. Yeah, lazy, but it's lazy, for me to do this.
We're calling it
But then,
they're calling it vibe coding now, really.
yeah, and again, folks who cannot write Python for a living, and that's most of the planet, honestly, can still build complex workflows because they can rely on the model abilities to understand, data structures and et cetera, et cetera. And yes, any one of those models will do the trick. So code boxes are really I would say, the last resort, or for the complex stuff that you need to run. Andrew, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take another example. And this is actually one, as Julien pointed out, right? Not needing to write any code, but being able to connect different integrations and lots of different models together. This is one where we actually pull a YouTube video, perform extraction on the transcripts, and then actually generate a blog post based on the content included in the.
Oh, I've done this one before.
Oh, yeah. So, well, many of you are actually recognize Julien prior. It's because he has a very successful YouTube channel, and this is a workflow that
I use for real. I use this one in real life. This is not a canned demo. And I actually, if you go to my Substack, you will see those blog posts in Chinese and Hindi, 2 amazing languages that, of course, I cannot speak. And this is great. Doing this stuff manually, extracting the captions, blah blah blah. If I had to do this every single time, I mean, I would waste a couple of hours, and I would have to try again, etc. And this workflow runs very nicely. So, and you can see here, there's no code box, right? This one is just models and integrations. And if I wanted to do another 10 languages, I mean, it would be as easy as, honestly, adding more boxes in parallel there. Yeah, so that's, I mean, I was really happy with this one.
Yeah, so we'll actually run this one and show everyone what the output actually is. So as you can see, the input is as simple as the ID of the video that Julien wants to create the blogs for. Um, and the way that you can think about this for your business is systems that you have where you might have a database with records that you want to be able to run processes on, whether they be automations or identifying trends over time or conducting some sort of summary based on data that you have. You can input just that simple little amount of data, be able to pull extra information from within the workflow, conduct that analysis of the process that you need to be done, and then it can push to other systems. We'll see it's able to execute very quickly. So once this finishes running, I can actually go and I'll pull the Google documents that were created with the blogs and show you what those look like. The other thing just to highlight here is the different models that can be used. So for example, here, when we're doing some cleanup on the captions that were created, we're using Virtual as a small because it's a simple task, right? Yes. But then when we want to go and do a more complex tasks, like actually writing that blog, you want to have the technical accuracy be correct. You want to be able to have the different components from the video included in the blog. We use a larger model. And this really shows the dynamic use of different models within a single execution. So while this one continues to run, let's also take a look, or actually perfect. Just perfect timing. Right in time. Let me go, and I'm now going to go into my Google Drive and pull these out. So here we can actually see one of the articles that was, or the blogs that was created. And you'll notice this was created 2 minutes ago, right? So this was actually created when we selected or ran that workflow. And this includes all of the information that Julien had in the video. Now, the video we actually chose to use was about one of our phenomenal models that came out, Virtuoso Large. And this just goes through that information.
Yep.
And
And this is again, coming back to what we were saying with Lucas, this is what models are great at, storytelling. Because if you look at YouTube captions, even even after I cleaned them up a bit, removing all my hesitations, etc. Um, the way, of course, the text coming out of those captions is, in this case, me explaining how things work, etc., etc. So it's a completely different structure from a blog post where you need obviously to be to be more consistent and go step by step and have an introduction and a conclusion, etc., etc. So the models are just great as taking this raw data, I mean the good stuff from the video and the captions, and just turn it into a blog post that makes sense. And they're able to do that because they're great writers, and obviously they have been trained on technical documents, so they know what a model is, they know what a blog post should look like, etc., etc.
When you ask what they're good, I mean, the whole orchestra was built with the idea of if we were gonna put this in a customer's environment tomorrow, and they wanted to derive in some actionable, like, genuine results from the machine learning tools, whether it's, again, doing examples like what Andrew has shown off, where you're kind of reducing some work that is usually, like, rather manual, repetitive, kind of labor intensive, and allow the people in your business to actually work on, like, those, like, where humans are lovely, which is like creativity, and engineering and problem solving, and kind of all of the more repetitive, mundane maintenance tasks of running a business or creating a product, and you can let models handle a lot of that, especially when you give them active flow and stuff. But, sorry to jump in again, Andrew, but
No, please.
yeah, I appreciate it. And one that's actually we're not showing today because the way I have it set up is it is integrated with our system, so it includes customer information. But one automation that like I use every single day is in a customer facing role, you are constantly taking notes from meetings that you have, looking at the CRM that you have set up, like what current deals are going on, what current information do we have, and updating different systems. And I used to spend a solid percent of the day, maybe sometimes even 10% of a day, updating different systems. And now I have workflows that I click a button and it automates that entire process for me once a call's done. So there are pieces where you can really automate large chunks of manual tasks right now, which now allow your teams to be able to focus on things that are way more important. So instead of updating CRMs, right, we can go and build more cool features or build new demos and all of that. So it's really allowing your teams to focus on what's important to the business instead of the really strict manual tasks.
and this is also like this is the orchestra just launched. Like, it is now that we've gotten it out the door and kind of accomplished our initial vision for it. Now we get to have fun, and like now we get some all at this. Wow, RC was very lucky that the the founders, Mark and Jake and others at RC believe very strongly in having a research division, instead of purely engineering. Though I would argue that a lot of research is also engineering, and they're kind of very, yes, but we have the ability to now do like genuine R&D to deliver experiences like Epanok and elsewhere, and I can't wait to start getting into the orchestra with the stipulation that orchestra is meant to be reliable, repeatable, and redundant. It should You should be very comfortable using these systems in your everyday workflow, either at work or with your customer facing products. So if we ever do release something that's more of like a research preview or a more kind of open-ended environment where there will always be like the, preview, beta, those kind of markers. So you can very clearly understand, like, if I'm going to go, put this under millions of requests per, it's load, which ones are safe and which ones are more kind of research app. I don't know. Did you end up getting that video, Andrew? I did want to show that. Because I put it in Slack, but one of the goals building our own from scratch system was that it made it really, we could design the way that the workflows are represented in a way that was easier for a model to understand and make their own. So while the node-based UI that you're seeing right now from that we've shown off today is what exists, a major research undertaking has been, how do you create a system that can generate workflows itself better? It's not hard to get a model to generate workflows. That's easy. We can do that with like Sonnet, throw in a system prompt with a bunch of few shot examples and go. Getting a model that can generate good workflows is completely different, because like I might go to a model and say like, hey, I want to summarize my emails every morning and get pinged with which ones are most important. Yeah, exactly. Well, right. But the model doesn't, if you don't train it or engineer it correctly, the model will just generate a bunch of slop. It'll, pick a range, outlook. It won't. So you need to train the model to know, like, okay, well, I have access to these tools. Where is your email from? Like, is it Gmail? Is it Outlook? Okay. How long do you want the summary to be? What time do you want it to check? Like, it needs to ask clarifying question in order to get you, a workbook usable. It's not 100%. I mean, it's, I'm hesitant to say 100%, accurate with anything in life, but especially Gen AI. But if it could get someone 90% of the way there, building a company.
It's another layer of automation and acceleration on
The
top.
models, the engineering is done. We are now just buttoning up the front end, but we do have a little video that if Andrew's able to show it, I'd love to.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually have that pulled up. But before showing that, there's one final thing I want to highlight on Orchestra, and that is the integrations. So here we see we have the integration node that we can use. And I want to highlight the number of integrations that we have. So, for example, when you come here and actually click on the integration node, you are presented with all of the integrations that we have, which we mentioned right now. I believe we're over 200. And you can see there's lots of different ones, from popular media sites like Discord and Reddit and things like that, popular document stores like Dropbox, your common Google Suites and all that. But also, there are a lot of actions for each integration. So one that you use all the time is Slack, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just that you have one or two actions for a specific integration.
Yeah, it's a full API almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
there are hundreds of actions that you can do for the different integrations that you have. So it really provides a lot of functionality that, Julien, you highlighted this before. Even if it took only 30 minutes to do one of these actions, if I'm trying to piece together 10 of these actions,
Yeah.
it's now a substantial amount of time, which I could now get done in a matter of seconds. So the integrations available are a big piece. So now I will switch screens real quick and show you that video that Lucas just talked about.
All right, let's see it.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people at Arcee have seen this either.
So there's that one. I'm watching it too. I may have questions. Careful.
I think of it like we're making Clippy 2.0. Oh, Michael, have you ever used something like Cursor or like an IDE. If you've ever used like something to help you edit, code. This is a similar idea where you say like, hey, I want to do this person said, make me a workflow for forwarding every email I get from marketing to my Slack. The channel is marketing emails. It goes through, it realizes, well, actually, you guys don't have a marketing channel called Slack. Called marketing emails. So let's make one. It goes through and gives you kind of like a wireframe of what all the things are going to do. And then this is just like a mock. But the whole idea is it's going to hold your hand through the process. It's going to make it a lot easier and all right. Get like from zero to.
So I'm not gonna ask for a release date, but okay, that's coming next, right? The cat is out of the bag.
The model's done, the back end's done. Now it's just getting that front end built, which shouldn't be long. So that's I think once you can start, that is the ultimate future for Orchestra. Is like it needs to be super easy to use. I want if an organization is buying Orchestra, wants to use it, I don't want it to just be one or two people at a company that are really good at making workflows for people. I want everyone across that organization, from HR to IT to field and sales and everyone, to be able to do that well.
Absolutely. Real life people solving real life problems
Dude.
in their complex real life business environments.
Yeah, see, Mark, I know we're kind of at time, but that's a good point. It's like a lot of these demos you see, they're assuming that the work is a lot simpler than it is. Real workflows, real business operations are rather complex.
And security and compliance and privacy and cost. And all those things are never discussed in those shiny demos. We come from those backgrounds, all of us, and the rest of the team have worked and are working with customers across the board. And I keep telling everybody, folks don't want models, they want solutions to their business problems. If those involve AI, okay, but it needs to work. If you don't need AI to solve it, that's fine too. It's we don't need to get excited about technology. We need to get excited about solving real problems for real people. And I think this is what we're doing here, up to the point where, like I said, you don't even have to be any kind of software engineer or not even a technical person to use that stuff. And the workflow generator you just showed is another amazing step in that direction. So keeping an eye on the clock, I think we need to wrap up. So I want to thank all of our viewers for spending some time with us. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website, read our product pages, and of course, you can you can book a demo, and chances are, it's going to be Andrew or Chris, or someone else, definitely from the team, connecting with you and working with you to understand your business problem and building a demo that makes sense for you. So don't hesitate to do that. Thank you very much, Lucas, for your insights and for leading this amazing effort. Again, I think the real fun starts now. I agree, and I can't wait to see where we're gonna all build and release together. And Drew, thank you so much again for the demos and the super crystal clear explanations. And of course, you don't see him on screen, but Chris, thank you so much for having our back here and answering the many questions that you got. And thank you to our amazing marketing team for setting up this event and giving us a chance to show you the cool stuff we're building. So thank you so much, everybody. Stay in touch, connect on LinkedIn or anywhere you can find us. And we'll see you soon with more Arcee Avengers goodness, I'm sure. Thank you. Have a great